Hi everyone, Claire Fluffle Kirby fan here for another Copy Ability Spotlight. This one's gonna rock, so if you want to help crush some numbers, let me know that this video is a gem by giving it a like and ring that notification bell. Wait a second, that's not a dumb joke. And subscribe to super help me out while also being notified whenever I upload. I really appreciate all of the support, and don't forget, this is a spotlight, so let me know in the comments which ability you want to see next. You can find the abilities already covered in the playlist. If you're watching this after the deadline of November 15th, 2022, where you can't vote for abilities anymore, just tell me what you think about Stone. Do you like it? Not like it? Have a story of clearing one of the boss rush modes with it, as I'm sure you all do? Let me know. And if you don't want to leave a comment on... Crag! That is both the best and worst pun that I am ever going to make in a video ever. The competition this time around was pretty fierce for the spotlight, but Stone kinda had it in the bag after last time. I know what you're all here for, don't you worry. That said, even if you're new and haven't seen the UFO spotlight, go watch it. Shameless plug. Stone has been around from the very beginning and is well known for being invincible against almost every attack. If you have the patience for it, you can clear a lot of boss fights without taking a single hit by just sitting there, unwaveringly immune to the demands of your impatience. While a fine method of meditation, it isn't very optimal, especially thinking about how slow it is. So let's take a look at Stone throughout all of the Kirby games and see how Stone fares. Is this a diamond in the rough, or one of those old decaying rocks that have icky bugs all over it? Time to find out. But before that, we gotta get this out of the way. No, the video's not sponsored. I'm still hungry and poor, but I kinda like the format of the UFO Spotlight, ranking the games from worst to best based on how good it was in each game. I think I'm gonna stick with it, but with that said, there is an odd one out here. With the focus of the spotlights being on speedrunning, Kirby's Dream Buffet doesn't really fit, I guess. But I can still talk about Stone in it and how, I don't know, okay it is. It's not bad, but it takes way too long to attack for it to really be useful in the Battle Royale mode. You get something like Burning, Wheel, Tornado, Needle, even the Candy, that is instant. And because of that, you can get some really nasty setups by bumping into other players. It's something that I credit normal Kirby for, and part of the reason why it's so good, but Stone is just too slow to capitalize on that. The Shockwave, I guess, can catch you by surprise, but if you're attentive, it's really easy to dodge. I still wouldn't say that Stone is bad, but I wouldn't call it good either. This game doesn't have much of a meta from what I can gather, but years down the line, when people want to play a quirky and forgotten game for the Switch, maybe Stone will do a little bit better. But until then, it is ranking time. Yeah, we're cheating at the start, but seriously, when else am I going to get to talk about Metal? It's close enough to being Stone, it's totally fine, except, it isn't fine. It's actually really bad. Really bad. This is probably the closest that casuals and runners, or at least the perception of both of them, will ever get to agreeing on something. And not a lot of people like Metal at all. It's kind of a shame because I like it a lot, but that doesn't matter. You move slow, bosses still hurt you, jumping around and floating is an alien concept. It's all just super rough. Forget the fact that Wheel is in this game, we're not even close to that. Metal is closer to something like 1 HP, 0 lives extra mode in OG Dreamland or something, I don't know. Which makes it all the more hilarious that there is a community-held race for Metal only any percent. No, I am not kidding, it was just kind of memed about for a bit, but then they all took it to a 2-hour and 15-minute finish. That sounds good, but for context, a regular any percent, that takes about 45 minutes. And that's not even the world record, that's just kind of an average good time. The best time for a Metal is approximately triple the length of mostly Wheel, which is a hilarious comparison that I never thought I'd get to make. Basically, the Kirby speedrunning community, they're all based, Metal is terrible, Metal is also based, and you can probably clear Squeak Squad faster than experienced runners can with Metal. Go on and do great things. Alright, so Metal being so bad it's funny gave me some funsies to talk about, but Stone unfortunately has a good chunk of games where, I don't really know, there's just kind of nothing to say. In Planet Robobot, Stone just kinda doesn't do anything. Except that you do need to use it in Hundo because of the Robobot armor, but needing to use and using it because it's good aren't always the same thing. That's passable against bosses, barely, but that's about all I can give it. Yawn. Okay, being serious for a second, but not for that long. Not every ability is going to shine in every single game. The Triple Deluxe is a similar story to the last two, used for a little bit in all Sunstones for a necessary puzzle, but never any percent because it simply doesn't offer anything. And similar to Planet Robobot, it's only okay against the bosses. I'll admittedly give it a slight edge in this case since there are other abilities that do what you want to do with it in the run, but it still reeks of I have to use it so I will energy. A real shame, but I promise we'll get to the interesting stuff soon. Alright, to get the obvious point out of the way, is this wing? No? Any percent, no, it's not for you. We good? Good. Now then, 100% is a category with some of the best ability variety in the series. At least before two-player strats were discovered. Stone doesn't offer any of the mobility that Meta Knight does, nor the utility of Bandana D or Day-to-Day. So for two-player plus Hundo, Stone isn't very good. Outclassed, you might say. And against bosses, it's, again, very same as the first. Fine. It functions like how it does in Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot, except bosses take less hits. Naturally, this makes Stone better, but it still isn't much to write home about. You use it in Hundo a few times, mostly for puzzles that you need Stone for, but you typically don't immediately have to get rid of it, which gives it some random niche perks. It doesn't amount to much, but between that and being okay against the bosses, Stone here is okay. Oh, hey, here's another game that Stone is in, and hey, look at that. You use it to move down really quickly in a level. And to give credit where credit is due, this is pretty nice, something that only Stone can do and would be a lot more difficult without it, since you'd have to dodge enemies and all that icky and not fun stuff. But otherwise, it's... You're all gonna call me a broken record. Fine. It doesn't have anything that really lets it stand out. I guess on a scale of how much does this look like a real Stone, the Nightmare Stone beats all the others by a landslide. Other games have Kirby into 8-ton weights, or statues of burly, muscular men. Or something like Kirby 64, where Kirby becomes a heckin' boulder. But here, no, Kirby just looks like a stone. Hey, listen, if it quacks like a stone, it's a stone. Does that make it good? Not really, but it's better than me having to repeat myself, believe me. I love Canvas Curse and all, but I've said what you're going to hear already. You want to go down? You don't get much better than Stone for that. You want to go up? You can't get much worse than Stone for that. You want to go forward? Go for it, I guess. You won't go fast, but you'll move, that's what counts. Stone is particularly useful for moving down underwater, although I won't lie and say it's your only option. If you're in the know on Canvas Curse, then you know that drawing a circle and then keeping your line going moves Kirby really quickly, and that tends to be even faster than Stone, but there are instances where having Stone instead of plain old normal definitely helps. It's also the only ability that can break stumps, so if you are playing 100% and you're stumped on how to go faster, Stone may help you. Nice. If there's one thing that you need to know about Kirby Star Allies, it's that the best abilities in this game are the best that they've ever been. The Dream Friends nullify most abilities to begin with, but even putting them to the side, when you have abilities like Wing for any percent or Bluster Bomb for the ultimate choice, why bother using other abilities? Things get a fair bit more balanced, however, when you run the ultimate choice with ability solos. Basically, take most of the things that make Star Allies absolutely broken and, well, you break them. Break them into a tiny little pieces. Pieces so tiny that you're just left with the bare basics. And, hey, you know what? For the most part, this is still the most insane many of these abilities have ever left. If we just look at the copy abilities, no multiplayer, no Dream Friends, even including the launch characters, basically, you just take it and make it look like any other modern Kirby boss rush, Stone is actually really good. You can see the specifics on screen now, and while I am totally down to explain why, it's very similar to a game that we'll be getting to later, so I don't want to say too much just yet. Tease you with a little quickie, the default attack, you know, the one that's super infamous for being slow, is fast. Yeah, kind of backwards, huh? Like I said, stick around because there's a game later on that has the same perks going for it. Plus, you know, you're giving me watch time, which YouTube loves. I appreciate it, thank you. Oh, but before we do move on, don't get the wrong idea. This doesn't make stone great or anything. It's fine. Here we go again. But being good when you strip away the bulk of the competition doesn't really mean very much. Add in Dream Friends, add in elements, add in multiplayer, things just don't look great. I'm glad there's at least something to say, give it one good appearance in the modern games and all that. Unfortunately, it isn't as fun as, say, Squeak Squad Metal. Your definition of fun may vary here, but let's just move on. Okay, this is real exciting, you see? You ready? Use stone when, are you ready? Use stone when you're falling. Are you ready? When you're falling, because you fall faster with stone. And get this, are you ready? In Milky Way Wishes, you use it against, and Hundo. You use it in Milky Way Wishes, Hundo, against one boss. You use it with Really Rider against the boss in Milky Way Hundo. And in Milky Way Wishes, you use it against the boss for one hit! Stone is honestly only this high up because it is really good against the bosses, but unlike some of the other games that we'll get to, there's better jank here than Stone. Something like Plasma or TAC or things like that makes Stone's time not as good, even though it does have a good time. I haven't talked about Ultra yet, so we'll get into a lot of the more specifics when we get to that game, but for now, Stone here is fine. Oh boy, alright, now things are starting to get interesting. Well, kinda. Stone isn't great in Kirby 64, but it has some good combinations. A regular stone and stone plus stone, where Kirby walks slowly, isn't good for running quickly. Makes sense. But many of the others, like burning plus stone and stone plus bomb, also fail to impress. Stone plus spark used to get a lot of hype for being good at killing enemies, but every combination is good at killing enemies, so it doesn't really matter. Yes, even the melting ice cube. You would also assume that stone plus needle is good for movement since it's a drill, but it doesn't actually offer much, and the fact that it takes 10,000 years to finish when you let go of the button doesn't do it any favors. The two notable combinations are ice plus stone and cutter plus stone. Now let's talk about ice plus stone first, because this one is actually pretty good for movement and sees use and hundo a decent bit. And it isn't just for what you need it for. In particular, it really impresses underwater. It's not seen quite as much in 80%, unfortunately. Burning's right there, hello. But for movement, there is already a version of stone which is really quick. Not what I expected here, but hey. But if you run Kirby 64, or you saw the Cutter Spotlight, you know what's coming here. Cutter plus stone, where Kirby transforms into a random animal friend from Dreamland 3. You specifically need Rick to get one of the crystal shards, and in a casual setting, it's confusing. How are you supposed to know that Rick can wall jump and all that stuff? But that's really all it is. Confusing. Maybe a little slow. And a speed run, though? I'll let this footage from the 2022 community relay speak for itself.
さあ、どうだ
さあ、1、2、3、4、5、
5、
6、
これはまさか
7、
まさか
8、
9、あーい。だけど
11、12、13、14、
あれ
15、
まさかあれまさか
16、
あれ
17、
あれ
18。
So yeah, that's a nightmare. Runners have, in fairness, figured out how to RNG manipulate for the entire run up to this point to ensure they get a first try Rick just to avoid this. But you also saw what happened to an experienced runner. Still, getting pitch from this ability is genuinely helpful. Let's not forget that the curling stone is also legitimately really good. While most of stone is still not that great, for the first time we see it in a genuinely positive light. That's good, considering we're halfway through the games and all that jazz. So stone is actually really good in Block Ball. The only downside, and it's not a stone thing, is that Block Ball as a game isn't the most developed, or I mean it's true, but more accurately, it's not the most possible game to develop. You just kind of use abilities as the game tells you to. That's kind of a bummer. On the bright side, I can say I've covered every ability in Block Ball now. That's cool. Even if I have to redo pretty much all of the other spotlights at some point. So why is stone good here? Well, if you remember in the fire spotlight, I described fire as something that destroyed everything in its path going straight up. And how good that is in a game where you just kind of want to destroy everything in the most simple way possible because Arkanoid is kind of a nightmare. Well, Stone is literally just fire, but moving down instead of up. Maybe fire is microscopically better since you always start at the bottom, but truth be told, it doesn't really matter. For all intents and purposes, they're equally good, with Spark being just behind them in viability. And then Needle's kind of bad. Poor Needle. So we've all expected this sad reality for a while now, I'm sure, but just in case, here's your Rick is useless warning. Now then, Rick plus Stone is legendary, not just for speedrunning, but for being the ultimate meme. Ahem. Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and say you're good in Kirby's Dream Land 2 when in reality you're Rick. I'm so sorry, we all love you, but you're just really bad. Considering the strength of Q plus Cutter and the relative lack of use for Stone underwater, you wouldn't expect Stone to be able to do much in Dream Land 2. Surprise, surprise, it finds some niche uses, even in any percent. The coolest has to be in Cloudy Park, where Stone gets to show its stuff against a mini-boss. But believe it or not, Stone is actually a really good boss killer, and if you can take abilities with you for the boss rushes, like in the Superstars kind of games, I genuinely rank it higher. Seriously, this is impressive. It's not particularly complicated either, just keep using it near a mini-boss and get a good rhythm going. Being able to one-cycle any mini-boss has serious value. But it's not funny, which is why the actual best use for it is later on in Cloudy Park, where you use it alongside Q to crush blocks above you. This has to be one of the single most cursed things that I have ever seen. Q doesn't even carry Kirby above him. Why does this work? It's something that I'd expect to find as like a YouTube short or something, not a speedrun. Still, in a way that is kind of even better, right? Even in the best ending, and Hundo by extension, Stone sees some extra use, namely in Ripple Field where it's required for a Heart Star. Still, just look at it used with Kine. This is not a good ability for levels. It takes longer to get through them with it than without it, but on the right side, again, it's really good as that boss killer. In any percent, you just use Kine and Fire here to get the job done easily, if not a bit slowly, so that you can keep Fire for later. But this is legitimately fast for a fight this infamous. Without an ability, it can take a while, and even with the right ability, and it's an underwater boss fight. It doesn't sound like it has the makings for being fast, and yet, here we are. Stone, making something normally slow, be fast. It all sounds so backwards. I know I've said this before, but still, is this reality? Is this real life? Yes. Alright, now that we've had our fun talking about Stone and some games that it's not very good in, and Dream Land 2, I actually will grant, it's quite good there. The next 5 games that Stone is in, it's genuinely, no hyperbole, amazing. Perfect. Not necessarily, it has a flaw in each of them, but after a bunch of unimpressive showings, Dream Land 2, the video is finally ready to get real spicy. Let's take a look at what makes Stone amazing and why it rocks. Oh, I actually didn't mean to make the pun that time, I'm sorry. To get this point out of the way real quick, Stone comes in handy for hole-in-ones. But, unlike speedier abilities like Burning, UFO, and Tornado, it stops Kirby, not speeds up Kirby. And that should be enough, especially since I just got finished saying Stone is really good from this point on. I don't want to sound like a total goof, right? For speedrunning, Stone fulfills a very important, albeit useless sounding, role. That being, when you're going really fast, you can stop going really fast. Wait, what? It may sound useless, but what's really important to note about Kirby's Dream Course is that if you get a hole-in-one, the game goes out of its way to tell you, you just got that hole-in-one. This process takes a while, so you want to make sure that you're getting somewhere between a 2 or a 3. It's par in golf, right? I'm pretty sure. You don't want to take too long, you just also don't want a hole-in-one. The easiest way to not get a hole-in-one is to just immediately shoot your shot really weak and then shoot it again. But Stone is important since if you have it right before the hole, you can stop right before you get the hole-in-one. It's genuinely nice to stop right in front of it, or rather, you have the option to. Basically, if you don't, you can accidentally mess it up and then you're gonna have to improvise. But if you have Stone, you can kind of guide yourself along until you make a mistake, in which case you can use Stone to stop yourself from moving, thus stopping yourself from making that mistake. These are just little time saves, but Stone's legitimately good for stuff like that. It's great for aerial shots too. See, when balls bounce, they bounce. You following me so far? I hope. And when they bounce, they move. You still with me? Oftentimes, for a game with as much precision as this, being able to immediately stop moving is a godsend. Most importantly, if you're moving super fast and you're about to pass a hole, you can stop dead in your tracks and land in the hole. When landing in the hole is how you progress, that's kinda rad. And unlike some of the, shall we say, speedier abilities, this one's around a lot, so it doesn't have to worry about availability. I wouldn't say it's in the contender for the best ability, namely since, like I said earlier, it doesn't do anything to make you go faster. It also has to contend with Needle, which does the same thing, but you don't slowly slide down when you're on a ledge. Still, it has enough good going for it to be right underneath the best, and that's worth something. Who would have known that not going fast... I've made that joke so many times already. You get the picture. We're moving on. Hey, yep. It's the moment you've been waiting for. Kirby's Adventure, where stone is absolutely useless in both 100% and any percent. Oh. Yeah, it can fall fast, and that technically has its perks, but why use it when you can use something like Tornado instead? It feels like it's been so long since I've last said that, and I say this every time that it's been a while. It just feels so good. Anyway, for those of you who saw the UFO spotlight, you may remember this, but for newcomers, here's a quick overview of how nutty this game is. We have the standard any percent and 100%, of course. However, Kirby's Adventure is riddled with glitches. Some, like using burning on a warp star in the warp star room, changing Kirby's color, is totally fine, has no reason to not be allowed in a speedrun. Others, like getting UFO and getting rid of it on the same frame you take damage, resulting in infinite UFO usage, were too much and got banned from any percent, thus creating any percent no major glitches, NMG for short, and any percent. However, there is more to the story. While I think almost everybody knows of this glitch, it's really popular, but just in case, the first level of Orange Ocean, there's an optional room where you can fight the rolling turtle. This is pretty annoying, but if you take stone and use it on this platform, it breaks for some reason. If you use stone again and press B and start at the same time, a variety of things can happen, one of them being, you get scuffed to the end credits. This is pretty late into the game, so it isn't the biggest deal breaker, but it sure does put a damper on that UFO dominance, huh? Anyway, you know what Kirby's Adventure has? Slopes. Random, but yes, slopes. Oh no, I didn't pay attention in math class. Yeah, your past is coming back to haunt you now in a Kirby video. Anyway, if you mash the jump button while landing on a specific pixel of slopes, Kirby can actually land inside of the slope. Like a Kirby Go inside it. I bet they never taught you that in math class. On its own, this doesn't really amount to very much, but there's something very important about this glitch, and that's how it works in tandem with abilities. If you find a pool of water near a slope and pull this glitch off, you can actually use abilities underwater. You need to float and exhale at the right time to trick the game into thinking you're on land. But yeah, remember what happens in Orange Ocean when you use stone underwater, technically? Credit to it. But there's no way that there's a slope that's right next to the water. No way. That would be way too convenient. Way. So, the strategy for beating Kirby's Adventure in under a minute is as follows. First, mix with these two Waddle Doo. That's pretty standard Kirby's Adventure speedrunning, but if you don't know, you can nail both of them at the same time. That causes a mix. It's a little tricky, doable, consistent, whatever. Then, you get to this slope and perform the very specific jump and clip through the slope. Once you trick the game into letting you use abilities underwater, use stone, press start and B at the right time, bam, credits worth. But Claire, you shout, that all sounds way too difficult. Isn't that tasks only? And you don't include tasks because you hate fun? No, okay, maybe you aren't thinking the last part, I'm not sure. But I actually figured when I first heard of this that this would be tasks only for a while also. But then I saw the any percent category on speedrun.com and watched a human being pull all of it off in under 40 seconds. Specifically, at the time of this recording, the world record is 39.720 seconds by Shiro. There's not a lot of things that you can do in that time frame, but apparently beating Kirby's Adventure is one of them. Technically. Thus, any percent no credits warp and any percent were born. Or any percent was reborn, I guess. So, obviously this is absurdly broken, taking advantage of at least 3 or 4 glitches and exploits, but it's still doable, and it's only doable with stone. I can't place it at number 1 in this video though, since not only is it useless in every other category, but it isn't necessarily playing fair, kind of like with UFO. But even then with UFO, it definitely uses glitches, but at least plays through the whole game, or as much of it as it possibly can. Tornado is broken beyond belief, and it doesn't need any glitches to be that way. Still, you look at the numbers, they really don't lie. Kirby's Dream Land is well over 100 times as long as this. That has to count for something. So now, for the 3rd time in a row after I said Stone would be absurdly good, I am here to tell you that it is, in fact, absolutely worthless in most of the categories. Even in 100%, where you have to go out of your way to get it in Milky Way Wishes, it doesn't get used. It even has that going for it in the original Superstar to add more salt to the open wound. Yeah, I'm not very good at this whole Stone is good thing, apparently. It's not even that bad, like Sword or something. I don't know why this is so high. But where Stone absolutely shines, and not for the reason that most people claim, sort of, is in Helper to Hero. See, it's tricky to explain because everyone who says, yeah, just use Stone's normal attack and you'll win, they're absolutely right. It's basically the only move it has and all that, especially, but they're also wrong in every sense of the word. Does that make any sense? Am I being mean? I don't know anything anymore. Stone is just doing so many things to my brain. I don't know how to feel anymore. But here is the ultra basic strategy for Stone in this game. The background footage is good reference, but it's also task, meaning it is executed faster than what a person would be able to pull off otherwise. Still, very doable by a real human being. Anyway, you use Stone, realize that there's very little end lag on it, change back to Kirby from your earthly origins, and then realize that there's almost no startup to Stone, and you use it again. Basically, don't lose me here, you press B, then B again, then B again. Rinse, repeat. You still with me? Now, obviously, Kirby bosses love being in the air, so if you want to get a super fast time, you need to mix in some A presses, but yeah, no, once you get the spacing down, it's actually that simple. And this is the same strategy used in a game like Star Allies, but what makes it better compared to that game is that Ultra doesn't have Dream Friends or elements or anything like that. It has multiplayer, but it wouldn't add a lot, if anything. Kirby actually shows bosses mercy in this game, so if you hit them, there's a little bit of time before they can get hit again. So while you may be able to get something faster, I can't imagine it being that much faster, especially compared to something like Star Allies. Good grief. As for the original Superstar, Stone is also very good for the bosses, like I said before, in tasks. Hitboxes in that game are pathetic, and Stone is no exception, but its time is kinda hard to argue, except, oh wait, that's the game with super broken abilities like Plasma, Attack, all that good stuff. It does admittedly have one of the better times, but again, just for tasks. The two issues kind of come together to make it not great in Superstar, but it is good. That said, in Ultra, it's better than great. As of about a year ago, Japan's best time for a real person, Helper to Hero, but Stone at number 2, super close behind Hammer. And with tasks, the roles are reversed. Yes, Stone is actually better than Hammer. And if you could say that you're better than Hammer in any game, that Superstar Ultra and beyond anyway, that's worth something. It's actually a pretty off statement, but it's close enough. I say Stone is better here compared to Adventure, since Stone here isn't using any kind of glitch or exploit to get its amazing time. It's kind of funny because the two are very similar, mostly useless, but game-breaking and, dare I say, meta-defining in one specific category. I'm sure Stone's usefulness could be transferred to the other boss rush modes, but until then, this is still one of the best for Helper to Hero, and that has to count for something. It does. If you thought Stone would be the same story here as in Dreamland 2, you would be wrong. Dreamland 2 and 3 are such different games after all. First, Stone just doesn't cut it against bosses anymore. Against mini-bosses, yeah sure, he's kind of fair amount doing the run, kind of goes Stone, it was good. But bosses, you have Kublas cleaning, there's just no point. This is also the second Dreamland game in a row where I have to explain that, even though the internet loves it, Rickrolling just has no place in Kirby speedrunning. I wish it did, but here we are. Psych! Rickrolling is actually responsible for one of the most interesting stories in Kirby speedrunning. See, there's a glitch in Grassland 6 in the room where, if you're going for Hundo or Best Ending, you need to collect all 3 of these well-hidden shapes hidden throughout the room. There's a lot of back and forth, but if you have Rick plus Stone, You can work it in a way where Kirby will clip through the ceiling. I don't want to bore you with all of the details, but the sad news is that this is a test strat. You're not pulling this off as a person, what with this so clearly being a nutty and insane strat you have to pull off. So it doesn't count for the video, it's actually just something that I wanted to bring up. Except, oh wait, current world record holder Dark Reale was searching for time saves and went to the task for some inspiration. Sure enough, there was the Rickroll glitch, as I am choosing to call it, and after trying a couple of times was able to pull it off. It's very strict, but far from impossible. It's very consistent with practice, and honestly, as someone who's pulled it off myself, it's kind of easy. It looks super hard, and it may take some time to get used to the inputs. They're kind of what you'd expect, you just have to do them really quickly. But once you get it, you got it. You even get to keep a Rick if you're using two-player strats. Just plop Gooey on him and they'll follow you wherever you go. Scary. Thankfully, Stone still gets to see a lot of use throughout any percent and best ending hundo both, even if you ignore Rick Astley. Yeah, the meme, it just works at so many levels. That's why people love Rickrolling so much. Anyway, Stone has a pretty iffy endgame. There are a lot of time saves that you can get by using Q plus Fire or something to move through slow time wasters that most abilities, Stone included, can't get through quickly. It's a bit different for best ending where you quite literally need to get it for part of a heart star, but yeah, no, I said before, Stone is still really good for mini bosses. Although I said kinda, not choo-choo, so I guess there's your evidence. Anyway, it becomes much better if you focus on the early game where you don't have to worry about that stuff quite as much. There, you can take advantage of things like how quickly it moves down, or how quickly it moves down, or... Okay, it doesn't do much, but it's really great at what it does. Kine plus Stone especially is nice, since Kine, for some reason, has insane mobility in Dreamland 3, and when you use Stone, you carry the momentum from your dash. This admittedly comes in handy a lot, even when you aren't moving down, but the biggest perk in both any percent and best ending is for moving through the water. Kine momentum underwater is actually a thing, and you're still completely invincible when using Stone. Enemies are placed pretty intelligently in Dreamland 3 in a way that prevents you from just breezing forward through levels. Kine plus Stone lets you do that while still moving quickly, making it insanely good, albeit only used in a Ripple field because lol Q. Q plus Stone, and for best ending Choo-Choo plus Stone, are used a decent amount at least. Well, Choo-Choo plus Stone, really just that mini boss gauntlet, but you saw how dangerous it was, so do not underestimate that killer of a combo. Q plus Stone, while still very useful, is much more traditional Stone affair, being used to move down really quickly. With Dreamland 3, and by extension Q, you're really just looking out for what Q doesn't do perfectly, and in this case, that's moving down and being invincible. Stone provides that. It's not as good as, say, Q plus Fire, but it's something. Stone with the other animal friends isn't really all that good, but thankfully, Kirby plus Stone is not bad. It's got the perks of moving down just like Q plus Stone. It's really what you want it to be. What were we talking about again? Oh yeah, Stone overall in Dreamland 3. Really good. Highly recommend using. It's solid. Alright, here we are. Amazing Mirror, number 1. Not gonna lie, things may look pretty dire at first, considering Stone has virtually no movement perks, and for most of the levels you're using Wheel or something to move around. As is, Wheel is fantastic against bosses, so it's hard to really piece together an argument for Stone being amazing on the outset. If you're in the know though, then you know. First things first, Stone absolutely decimates bosses. It just kind of destroys them. It's admittedly outclassed by Smash and the boss rush modes, but Stone's technically part of the moveset, so hey, something. But more importantly, not being the best doesn't mean it isn't absurdly overpowered for beating them, but you also never use Smash when speedrunning the main game, ever. You're really gonna go out of your way to get it when you can only get it by beating Master Hand, a mini-boss in an area where presumably having wheel movement is way more important? Stone doesn't have to worry about competing for movement and can focus on being the best boss killer in any percent, except for maybe Wheel. But even that is only because you're using Wheel so much, the clear times you'd be able to get with Stone, if it was available for more bosses, would be insane. So what makes Stone so absurd here compared to, say, Nightmare? Is it the Superstar Ultra story again? Well, kinda. The strategy is the same, but what makes Stone incredible is how Amazing Mirror handles enemies being hit. Basically, while bosses do have a mercy cooldown, if something counts as a hit, it's a hit. For movement-based abilities, this means that hitting enemies costs time, since they're getting hit rapidly in quick succession, causing what we call hit lag. But for something like Stone, hitting bosses means that they die sooner. It's very similar to the Ultra approach, only much easier and somehow even better. Funny how that makes. There are a few points throughout an any percent run where grabbing stone for a boss, or something like that, is your best option. Thankfully, while not wheel fast, normal Kirby is quick enough, so it ultimately winds up being worth it to ditch wheel to deal with the boss. There are so many ways to get wheel back relatively easily if you know what you're doing too, so ditching a great boss killer for a better one is fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. And that's it. Yeah, I know, kinda anticlimactic since I had so much to say on the others, but being a boss killer in the GBA style games doesn't really offer much in terms of things to talk about. Use stone, mash B, bosses die. It's fun, it's strong, and I would say it's the best stone has ever looked. If I had to say what pushes it over the others, it would be that it's amazing, top tier, near the best of its class, yada yada, specifically with no strings attached. It's not limited to one mode, it's not in a golf game where moving's more important, it's not bad in the late game. For what it does, it's always great. And that's stone finally! That was the first really long spotlight in a while. So how is stone overall? For any ability that's in a lot of games, there are bound to be a decent amount of stinkers. In Stone's defense, it isn't that bad in all but a couple, and if we don't include Squeak Squads in Metal or Dream Buffets, well, anything, it does improve. On the other hand, its best game, Amazing Mirror, has it be great for killing bosses, not really all that much more. It's definitely good in enough games for me to say that it's above average, but none of the games it shows up really wow you. Fairly, at least. Looking at you, Kirby's Adventure. Got my eye on you. For something like Cutter, yeah, it had some lame stuff, but some of the games it was in, it was pretty heckin' good. And Robobot, forget it, it's contender for the best in the game overall. You can say this about other abilities like for Hammer, Parasol, Bomb, plenty of others. Stone is just missing that special something that makes it special. Above average is a bit harsh considering stuff like Ultra, Dreamland 3, and of course Amazing Mirror, but I'll still only settle on it being really good, but not great. Kind of a shame, but it could be worse. It could be metal. It could be metal.